As you might could tell immediately, G-String started off as a mod created in Gmod. It's a mostly one-person project that started in 2006, and after over a decade of development, finally released to the public on Steam in 2020. I'll talk more about the creator later, but just to start off to put everything else in context, G-String is an intense labor of love. The blood, sweat, and tears of a creator dedicated to making their vision a reality is apparent in every ounce of this game. It's far from a perfect game, and I'm gonna feel a little bad bringing up all the negatives, but it's impossible not to respect what this game does achieve. The world of G-String is a true cyberpunk world through and through. Inspired by the likes of Akira and Ghost in the Shell, we're taken to an Earth ravaged by climate change, with the last remaining superpower, the North American Union, running a brutal authoritarian regime with universal surveillance and savage raids on the slums, while the rich and powerful were able to escape into orbit. It's classical cyberpunk, and after Cyber 2077, it was really great to see. You play as Myo Hiyori, an augmented 18-year-old Korean girl who has been given psychic powers after a government experiment, and now has to run from those seeking to reclaim her. And that's really all you have to go on for the first several chapters of the game, as you slowly make your way through the slums of Greater Chinatown. So now we can talk about gameplay. It's basically Half-Life 2. While a lot of source mods turn standalone games like to change up the fundamental gameplay, some more than others.
Oh hey, why does he have the gun?
Wait, are you guys killing that NPC?
G-String remains mostly the same. At the start, your psychic powers are effectively just a gravity gun. There's also pyrokinesis, but it's okay if you forget about it because the game does too. And you've got a hammer for your crowbar, most guns have a parallel. It takes a bit too long for your arsenal to expand. Even if you can find one of the hidden secret guns early on, once you run out of bullets, that gun is done for. I hate to get into the negatives so early, but this is where it makes sense, so let's hop into it. The shooting is one of the weakest aspects of the game. Shots don't have a lot of oomph to them. It's hard to tell if your shots are really doing anything until the enemy falls over dead. It turns most combat encounters into just DPS trades. Especially early on, when your only reliable source of damage is in the game's submachine gun. Enemies can definitely be bullet sponges, which can make fights feel unfair. Let's see how many alt fires it takes from this shotgun to kill this enemy. This is especially true when they can kill you faster than you can even figure out where they are. Enemies really like to hide up out top and spawn behind you without much visual or audio cue. It has a lot of fuck you, die moments that I don't see many people making past their first time. Though maybe a good bit of these I was supposed to stealth or run past, I realized that was an option later on in the game, but my gamer brain says no, kill them. This isn't to say combat doesn't have its moments, it really does, but they are usually facilitated by the arena of the fight or the context surrounding it, a lot like Half-Life 2. The source engine in this game is a bit of a double-edged sword. On one hand, the engine's physics are vital to its environments and its puzzle solving, not to mention that liminal quality you always get with source engine games. That feeling is here in its strides, and it's vital to the atmosphere of the game. Plus, you get source engine gibs. On the downside you have, well, the reasons the source engine is outdated. More on that later, let's stay positive here. The detail in these environments really sells the world. This has always been the biggest thing that sets source games apart. I'm not sure if this is something with specifically the source engine and how it does physics objects, or it's just a tradition carried on, but I will always love it. If you're like most people and thought the City 17 chapters of Half-Life 2 were the best part of the game, then you're in luck. G-String takes that environmental storytelling found in making your way building by building through this destroyed world and extends it out in a masterful way. It speaks less using NPCs acting out scripted moments in the level than it does through the level itself. The graffiti on the walls of these apartment buildings often uses imagery of anarchy, religion, or sex. The constant sounds just out of earshot of violence and struggle. As you walk through these lowest areas, trash and discarded sex bots are constantly being dumped from above. You really feel like a worm, slowly crawling your way to the very bottom of this society that has been abandoned and forgotten by those who could get away. When I say crawl, I really do mean it. There's probably a bit too much crawling in this game, through vents, sewers, holes in buildings. I appreciate the effect, but the game could certainly do with less of this. Combat being a bit of a weak point isn't a big deal, because it really takes a back burner to the rest of the game, which is exploring and puzzle solving. I definitely use more grenades to solve puzzles than I did in combat. The exploration is fun. Lots of alternative routes rewarded with health and ammo, and usually something cool to look at. It's the kind of game where you try to find the right way so that you can go the wrong way and see what's down there. Though maybe the game could be a bit more clear about which way is the right way. The game has a good amount of platforming and squeezing yourself into tight spaces, and here the collision of the Source engine is just so unreliable. You find yourself often in situations where you can't tell whether you're supposed to go this way or fit in this hole, make this jump, can I stand here, is this thing blocking me? It can be a bit much. On the puzzle side, it tries out a lot of cool stuff I've never seen done in the Source engine before. Lots of stuff with gravity and fluids, chain reactions of explosives. Though I haven't played a lot of Half-Life 2 mods, so it's novel to me as someone else might have seen plenty of times before. Another area that the game blows out of the water is its use of color and lighting. There's so much cinematic framing in G-String, it's really quite beautiful. The game's flashlight has an indefinite battery, so you can accidentally leave it on all the time, but I definitely recommend turning it off every now and then, as it can sometimes ruin the intended lighting effects. You can tell the creator is a big film fan, or at the least a big Suspiria fan. The developer talks about this, how she always thought the idea would be a film, something you can see in the game's cinematic filters you can enable. As it happens, we know exactly what inspired the creator. Classic sci-fi films like Blade Runner and Star Wars, along with more auteur picks like 2001: Space Odyssey and the works of David Lynch. Each of these influences is very easily seen in the game, but that doesn't mean G-String isn't without its own voice. Sure, you have the usual cyberpunk issues of class disparity, environmentalism, authoritarianism, but you also get this anchoring of the end of the world that each of these issues seems to be playing into. And on top of that, G-String's biggest running theme is sex and beauty, and how the commodifications of both can be detrimental. From the discarded sex bots you fight, moaning and gyrating as your bullets tear through them, to the constant ads graffiti featuring idealized women, and the used bra and panty vending machines. Not to mention the baitin' booth. Go away, he's baitin'. On this, the dev says, when work started on this project, I was going through a difficult time, and G-String reflected this by touching on some troubling issues. Over the years, even elements of horror and surrealism have found their way into the mix. Everything changes, though, and this work should not be viewed as a mouthpiece for anyone's views or beliefs. Everyone is encouraged to make up their own minds about the concepts they are presented with. So let's talk about the creator of the game, Iara, or more specifically, her YouTube channel. Originally, this was just a channel to post trailers for the game, along with its soundtrack. Lately, it's turned to a channel for devlogs, which can range from going through her thought process for certain decisions in development.
The trick here is, how do you make a sewer interesting? I chose to do it with dynamic lights and art and debris.
To what you could really call short films, as she talks about the pressure that comes in making one's dream a reality.
I mean, most are asleep and do not have dreams, but many do.
The bittersweetness of letting something so personal out there for the world to judge, and the constant drive an artist can feel to perfect their work. It's all a very honest look at what game development can truly be, and the mental toll it can take. But it's not all doom and gloom on the channel. There's lots of levity in the videos, not to mention the underlying hope that Iara's dream did come true. G-String is a reality. G-String was on my radar for a bit, but it was watching these videos that finally pushed me to play through it. And while I've been a bit harsh in its shortcomings, it's still a game I would highly recommend. This world is truly someone's baby. I think a lot of us have our idea for a story. A world or narrative that keeps with us since childhood and grows and changes as we mature, adding on with each piece of media that touches us. And it's so gratifying to see someone be able to make theirs a reality. With the game on Steam, or with the right link, you also get G-String Beauty Secrets, a 112-page document that is somewhere between a game manual and a lore bible. It sheds a lot of light on the world of the game, and the history of its creation. Just look how much it has to say on each individual ship you see in the game alone. I recommend reading through it, but not until after you beat the game, as it does spoil bits. G-String is a flawed labor of love. I won't lie and say the game didn't have me bored or pissed off in a few sections, but in that is still some beauty. No board labored over how this game was going to be laid out. No marketer came through and said, this pacing's messed up, you need to redesign this character. G-String is an artist speaking through their art, and I wouldn't have it any other way.